The sun was almost gone, hiding behind the gray clouds that looked heavy and tired. The house stood silent, too quiet for a home that once echoed with laughter and warmth. Aiden walked through the empty hallway, each step echoing softly against the cold marble floor. The air smelled of old wood and memories. The portraits on the wall stared down at him, his parents' smiling faces frozen in time, and for a moment he felt his throat tighten. He whispered to himself, "I still remember that night." It was the night everything changed. The night he lost not only his father, but also the peace he once knew. Aiden had grown up believing that family meant trust, honesty, and love. But that belief was about to shatter in ways he could never imagine. His father, Richard Collins, was a respected businessman, kind-hearted but strict. After his mother's death years ago, Richard had tried to fill the emptiness by remarrying a woman named Sabrina. She was younger, elegant, charming, the kind of woman who could light up a room with her presence. But Aiden never felt right about her. There was something in her smile that felt too perfect. To practice, at first, she tried to be close to Aiden, buying him gifts, cooking his favorite meals, pretending to care. But over time, her true colors started to show. She would whisper things to his father when Aiden wasn't around. Sometimes she would lie small lies that slowly poisoned the relationship between father and son. Still, Aiden stayed silent. He respected his father too much to cause trouble. Then came that night, the night of the heart attack. It was raining heavily, thunder shaking the windows. Aiden had just returned from a business trip. He went straight to his father's study, but before he could knock, he heard voices inside, Sabrina's sharp tone cutting through the air. "You promised me everything, Richard." She snapped. "I never promised everything, Sabrina," his father replied, his voice weak but steady. "The company belongs to Aiden. That was your agreement when you married me." There was a pause. Then Sabrina's voice dropped to a cold whisper. "You'll regret that decision." Moments later, Aiden heard a loud crash, a glass hitting the floor, and then silence. He rushed inside. His father was clutching his chest, gasping for air. While Sabrina stood frozen, eyes wide, pretending to be shocked, Aiden yelled her name, pushed her aside, and called the doctor. But it was too late. His father was gone before the ambulance even arrived. The next few days were a blur of grief and confusion. The funeral came and went. Relatives whispered in corners, offering fake condolences. Sabrina cried the loudest, always staying close to the guests. Pretending to be the heartbroken widow, Aiden noticed everything, the way she watched the lawyers, the way her tears stopped the moment no one was looking. Something was wrong. When the lawyer, Mr. Henderson, arrived a week later to discuss the will, Sabrina made sure to sit right beside him. She smiled when he opened the brown envelope, her perfectly manicured nails resting lightly on the table. "I'm sure Richard wanted me to handle everything," she said smoothly. Aiden sat across from her, hands clenched. "Let's just hear what the will says," he replied. But as the lawyer read through the document, Aiden's heart sank. According to that paper, everything, the company, the house, the accounts, all were left to Sabrina. Aiden was only mentioned once, a single line about a small investment share. It didn't make sense. His father had always said the business would be his. Aiden stared at Sabrina. She smirked slightly, a tiny, cruel curve of her lips that she quickly hid behind her tissue. He knew in that moment that something wasn't right. After the meeting, Aiden confronted her in the hallway. "You changed it, didn't you?" he said quietly. Sabrina laughed. "Careful, Aiden. Accusing someone of forgery is a serious crime." "Not as serious as stealing a dead man's legacy," he shot back. Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't respond. She simply turned away, her heels clicking on the marble floor as she walked out of the room, leaving behind the faint smell of her perfume and a storm of anger in Aiden's chest. That night, Aiden couldn't sleep. He walked around the house, the rain still falling outside. Every corner reminded him of his father. He stopped at the study, the same place where his father died. On the desk, there was a small wooden box. He had never noticed it before. The key was still in the lock. He opened it slowly. Inside were letters, old papers, and one sealed envelope with his name on it. His heart raced. He opened the envelope and unfolded the paper inside. It was a handwritten note, and it changed everything. My dear son, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer here. I trust you to take care of what we built together. The company, the house, they are yours. Sabrina has her share, but she must not control what rightfully belongs to you. I have kept a second copy of the will with my lawyer, the real one. Trust no one. Your father. Aiden froze. A second copy. That meant the document Sabrina showed was fake. But where was the real one? He needed to find Mr. Henderson again. Maybe the lawyer didn't know what had happened, or maybe someone had gotten to him first. The next morning, Aiden went straight to Henderson's office. The old lawyer looked nervous when Aiden entered. Mr. Collins, didn't expect to see you so soon, he said, adjusting his glasses. Mr. Henderson, Aiden said firmly, placing the letter on his desk. My father wrote this. He said you had the real will. So tell me what happened. The lawyer's face went pale. He stared at the paper for a long moment, then whispered, You need to be careful, Aiden. Things are not as they seem. What do you mean? Henderson sighed. A few days before your father's death, Sabrina came to me with a new document. She said your father wanted to make changes. It looked real. His signature, everything. But when I tried to confirm with him, I couldn't reach him. The next day, he was gone. So you went ahead and read that fake will? Aiden asked, anger burning in his chest. I had no choice, Henderson said quietly. It was legal on paper. But if you have that letter, it means your father knew she might do something. There must be proof somewhere. Maybe he hid it. Aiden left the office with his mind racing. Proof? That was the key. Somewhere in that house. His father had hidden the real will, the one that could destroy Sabrina's lies. He went home determined to find it. He searched the study, the drawers, even behind paintings. Hours passed, nothing. Then he remembered something, a strange noise he once heard from behind the bookshelf years ago. When he was younger, he walked to the shelf, ran his hand along the back, and knocked softly. One side sounded hollow. Carefully, he pulled out a few books, and behind them, he found a small wooden panel. It took effort, but he managed to slide it open. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was another envelope with a familiar signature. His heart pounded. He pulled it out, opened it, and there it was. The real will. The paper was slightly yellowed, but clear. Everything, the company, the estate, was written under Aiden's name. Sabrina was only to receive a small monthly allowance. Aiden sank into the chair, tears welling in his eyes. His father had trusted him after all, but he knew this wasn't over. He needed to make it official to expose her lies in court. Just then, he heard the sound of a car outside. Headlights flashed through the window. Sabrina was home. Aiden quickly hid the envelope inside his jacket. When she entered, she gave him a fake smile. Still living here, I see, she said coldly. For now, he replied, his voice steady. She tilted her head. You look different. Planning something, Aiden? He didn't answer. She stepped closer. You should know when to let things go. Fighting me will only make things worse. He met her gaze. You'll see what's worse soon enough. Her smile faded for a second, replaced by a flicker of fear. Then she turned away. Aiden walked to his room that night with the real will hidden under his bed. He couldn't trust anyone, not even the lawyer. Tomorrow he would go to court. But deep down, he felt uneasy, like someone was watching him. He turned off the lights, but the shadow outside his window didn't move. The night was long and cold. The wind whispered through the half-open window, carrying the faint smell of rain. Aiden lay in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. He could still feel it, the strange tension in the air, like someone was watching him. Every creak of the old house made his heart jump. The sound of the clock ticking in the hallway grew louder, heavier. He turned to look out the window. The street below was quiet, but a car was parked near the gate. One he didn't recognize. Its headlights were off, but he could see the faint outline of someone sitting inside. A chill ran down his spine. He got up quietly, walked to the curtain, and pulled it back slightly. The car's window rolled down for a second, and the glow of a cigarette flared in the darkness. Then the window went up again. Who is that? Aiden whispered to himself. He waited for a while, but the car didn't move. Finally, he stepped away, took out the envelope from under his bed, and placed it inside a small metal box. He locked it and slid it into the bottom drawer of his desk. He knew one thing for sure. If Sabrina found out he had the real will, she would do anything to stop him. Morning came slowly. The sky was gray, and the house smelled of old dust and coffee. Aiden walked into the kitchen to find Sabrina sitting at the table, reading the newspaper. She looked up, smiled faintly, and said, "You look tired, Aiden. Didn't sleep well." He didn't respond. He poured himself a cup of coffee, his eyes never leaving her face. She looked calm, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. There was something calculating in the way she watched him. "Planning something today?" she asked casually. "Just visiting the lawyer again," Aiden replied. She nodded slowly. "You're wasting your time. My husband made his wishes clear." Aiden leaned forward slightly. "We'll see about that." Sabrina's hand froze on her cup for a brief moment. Then she gave a short laugh. "You really think you can fight me? The company, the house, it's all in my name now." "You have nothing, Aiden." Kay said nothing. He just walked past her and out the door as soon as he left. Sabrina's smile faded. She picked up her phone and made a quick call. "He's going to the lawyer again," she whispered. "Do it today. Make sure he doesn't reach the court." Aiden didn't hear any of that. He was already driving fast through the wet streets, his mind filled with thoughts. He reached Mr. Henderson's office an hour later. The old man looked even more nervous than before. "Aiden," he said, "you shouldn't have come here so openly." "They're watching you." Aiden frowned. "Who's they?" "People connected to her," Henderson said. "I've received threats since the will was read. Someone wants to make sure I keep quiet." "Then it's worse than I thought," Aiden said quietly. He pulled out his phone and showed Henderson a photo of the real will. "I found this. The original is safe. Can this be enough to reopen the case?" The lawyer stared at the photo, his hands trembling slightly. "Yes, if we can verify it's authentic. The court will have to hear you. But Aiden, you need protection. Sabrina is not working alone." Aiden leaned back, thinking. "I'll go to court tomorrow. I'm not afraid of her." But as he left the office, he noticed the same black car parked nearby. The driver pretended to be reading a newspaper, but Aiden saw the small earpiece in his ear. He decided to test something. He turned the corner, walked into a small cafe, and sat near the window. 10 minutes later, the same man entered the cafe and sat at another table. Pretending to drink tea, Aiden's suspicion was confirmed. He was being followed. He quietly sent a text message to a friend, Ryan, who worked as a private investigator. They had known each other since college. "Need your help," Aiden wrote. "Someone's watching me. It's about my father's will," Ryan replied quickly. "Stay where you are. I'm coming." 20 minutes later, Ryan entered the cafe dressed in a gray jacket and cap. He spotted Aiden, sat down, and whispered, "Don't look back." "Black car outside, right?" "Yes," Aiden said. "You saw it too." "Yeah, it's registered under a fake name," Ryan said. "That means someone paid to keep it untraceable." "What did you get yourself into?" Aiden told him everything. The fake will, the letter from his father, the hidden envelope. Ryan listened silently, his expression darkening. "That woman's dangerous," Ryan finally said. "If she's behind this, she has money and power. You need to be smart. Do you have the real will with you now?" "No," Aiden replied. "It's hidden at home." "Good," Ryan said. "Keep it that way. I'll look into her contacts. Maybe we can find out who's helping her." They planned to meet again that evening. Aiden returned home before sunset, pretending everything was normal. Sabrina was in the living room talking on the phone. Her voice was soft but tense. "Yes, he's home now," she said. "Don't worry. I'll take care of it." When she noticed Aiden, she smiled sweetly. "Oh, you're back. How was the meeting?" "Interesting," he said flatly. She tilted her head. "You always were a terrible liar, Aiden. You found something, didn't you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he went upstairs. He could feel her eyes following him as he climbed the stairs in his room. He locked the door and opened the drawer. The envelope was still there, safe. He breathed out in relief. But something felt off. The air smelled faintly of her perfume, even though she had never entered his room before. He looked around carefully. Then he saw it, a small black device under the table. A bug. She had been listening. Aiden picked it up and crushed it in his hand. His anger grew stronger. Enough was enough. That night Ryan called again. "I found something," he said. "Your stepmother has been transferring money to a man named Victor Lane, ex-lawyer, known for document forgery. He disappeared last year, so she paid him to fake my father's will," Aiden said. "Looks like it," Ryan confirmed. "But if we can find him, we can prove it in court." "Where is he now?" Ryan hesitated. "Last known location, a farmhouse outside the city. Dangerous area. You shouldn't go alone." But Aiden didn't listen. He was tired of waiting. Early next morning, he drove out to the farmhouse, hidden deep among trees and fog. The place looked abandoned, but he saw movement inside. He stepped out of his car slowly, heart pounding. The wooden door creaked as he pushed it open. Inside, the room smelled of damp wood and cigarettes. On the table lay a stack of papers, a half-empty bottle of whiskey, and a photograph, Sabrina and the same man from the cafe. Aiden froze. She was working with him. Suddenly, a voice behind him said, "You shouldn't have come here." Aiden turned quickly. It was Victor, tall, thin, eyes cold. He pointed a gun at Aiden. "Who are you?" Victor asked. "I'm the son of Richard Collins," Aiden said, keeping his voice calm. "The man whose will you forged." Victor smirked. "You shouldn't know that." "Guess Sabrina didn't tell you everything?" "What do you mean?" Aiden asked. "She promised me a lot of money," Victor said, stepping closer. "But she also said you'd never find out." "Guess she was wrong." Aiden tried to think fast. "You could fix this." "Tell the truth." "You'll be free." Victor laughed. "And lose the money." "No thanks." He raised the gun slightly. Aiden's heart raced. Just then, a noise came from outside, the sound of tires crunching on gravel. Aiden glanced toward the window. Another car had arrived. Victor cursed under his breath. "She's here." Sabrina stepped out of the car, dressed in a black coat, her expression cold and sharp. She walked into the house slowly, heels clicking against the wooden floor. Well, she said softly, her eyes locking onto Aiden. "I warned you not to play hero." Aiden's jaw tightened. "You forged my father's will." She smiled. "Prove it." "I will," Aiden said. "In court." She looked at Victor. "Did you take care of it?" "Almost," Victor said, keeping the gun pointed at Aiden. But Sabrina suddenly turned toward Victor, her voice low and dangerous. "I can't have any loose ends, Victor. You know what to do after him." Victor hesitated. "Wait, what?" Before he could finish, Sabrina pulled a second gun from her coat and fired. The sound echoed through the farmhouse. Victor fell to the ground motionless. Aiden stood frozen in shock. Sabrina looked at him, calm and unshaken. "Now, you're the only one who knows. And soon you won't either." She raised the gun again. Aiden backed away slowly, his mind racing. He spotted the window behind him, half open. She took a step closer. "Goodbye, Aiden." "Ah!" But before she could pull the trigger, the sound of police sirens filled the air outside. Her eyes widened in shock. "What?" Aiden didn't wait. He jumped through the window, hitting the ground hard, and ran into the forest behind the house as the sirens grew louder. Behind him, he heard shouting, tires screeching, and Sabrina's angry voice echoing through the night. He kept running until his legs gave out. He fell to the ground, breathing heavily. The cold air burned his lungs. But he didn't stop. He had survived, but the fight was far from over, because now Sabrina knew that he had the real will, and she would stop at nothing to get it back. The forest was silent, except for the sound of Aiden's heavy breathing. His clothes were torn, his hands scraped by branches, but he didn't care. He had escaped barely. The cold night air filled his lungs, and every heartbeat felt like thunder inside his chest. The image of Sabrina standing there, calm and deadly, still haunted him. He sat against a tree, trying to catch his breath. The police sirens had faded, but his mind was still racing. He didn't know whether the police had arrested her or if she had somehow managed to escape again. All he knew was that he couldn't go back home. Not yet. She knew where he lived. He pulled out his phone, but the battery was almost dead. Only one bar left. He quickly texted Ryan. She killed Victor. I barely escaped. I'm in the woods near the farmhouse. Please find me. Then the phone died. Aiden looked around. The forest was dark, but a faint light flickered in the distance. Maybe a small house or a cabin. He stood up slowly and followed the light, careful not to make noise. His shoes sank into the wet soil as he walked. Each sound, a twig breaking, an owl hooting, made his heart jump. After a few minutes, he saw a small cabin. Smoke rose gently from the chimney. He hesitated for a second but decided to knock. An old man opened the door, holding a lantern. His wrinkled face softened when he saw Aiden. You look like you've been running from the devil himself, Kay said in a rough but kind voice. Aiden forced a weak smile. Something like that? Come in, the man said. You'll catch your death out here. Inside, the cabin was warm. The smell of burning wood filled the air. The man handed Aiden a towel and some water. Name's Thomas, he said. You're not from around here, are you? No, Aiden replied. I just got lost. Thomas nodded slowly. People only get lost in these woods when they're running from something. Aiden didn't answer. He didn't want to drag the man into his mess. But as he sat there, he felt a strange peace, something he hadn't felt in weeks. After a while, Thomas spoke again. You can rest here for the night. The world can wait until morning. Aiden thanked him and sat near the fire, staring into the flames. His father's words echoed in his mind, trust no one. He wondered how his father had known Sabrina would betray him. Had there been signs? Was she already planning everything even before the heart attack? Then a thought hit him like lightning. What if the heart attack wasn't natural? He remembered that night, the argument, the crash of the glass, Sabrina's cold eyes. His father had always been healthy. It didn't make sense. His hands trembled. Could she have done something to him? He needed proof, medical records, reports, something that could show what really happened. When morning came, Aiden thanked Thomas and left quietly. He walked to the main road and managed to hitch a ride to the city. His clothes were dirty and his eyes were red from no sleep, but he didn't care. He went straight to Ryan's small office on the edge of town. Ryan was already there, pacing nervously. When he saw Aiden, his face filled with relief. You're alive, he said. I heard about the shooting. The police found Victor's body. Sabrina disappeared before they arrived. So she's free, Aiden said bitterly. For now, Ryan said. But she's in trouble. The police are looking for her. Still, we need to be careful. If she's desperate, she might do anything. Aiden sat down, running a hand through his hair. Ryan, I think she killed my father. Ryan looked shocked. You mean? Yes, Aiden said. I think the heart attack wasn't natural. She was with him that night. I heard them arguing before he collapsed. What if she poisoned him or gave him something? Ryan rubbed his chin. If that's true, we need proof. Do you have access to your father's medical records? I can get them, Aiden said. They're in the family doctor's office, Dr. Mitchell. He treated my father for years. Then that's our next step, Ryan said. But we have to move fast. If Sabrina suspects you're alive and investigating, she'll try to erase every trace. They drove to Dr. Mitchell's clinic later that afternoon. The doctor, a gray-haired man with kind eyes, looked surprised when Aiden walked in. Aiden Collins, he said. I didn't expect to see you. I'm sorry about your father. Thank you, Dr. Aiden said softly. But I need to ask you something important. Do you still have his medical files? Dr. Mitchell hesitated. Yes, but why? I think his death wasn't an accident, Aiden said. Please, I just need to see the reports. The doctor looked around nervously, then nodded. He went to the back room and returned with a thick folder. Aiden opened it quickly, flipping through the papers. His father's last test results were all normal. Blood pressure, heart, everything. But one page caught his eye. It was a toxicology report dated the day after his death. It showed traces of a rare drug, Digitalis, a medication used for heart conditions but deadly in high doses. Aiden felt his stomach twist. "Did you run this test?" he asked the doctor. Dr. Mitchell nodded. "Yes. But before I could report it, someone came to my office. Your stepmother. She said it was a private family matter and took the original report. I kept this copy just in case." Aiden looked at Ryan, his voice trembling. "That's it. That's how she killed him." Ryan took a deep breath. "We have her now. Murder and forgery. She's finished." But Aiden shook his head. "Not yet. We still need to make it official. We need to get the real will verified in court and hand over this report. Only then will she pay." They decided to meet the lawyer, Mr. Henderson, again the next morning. But that night Aiden couldn't rest. Every sound made him flinch. He had the toxicology report in his bag and the will hidden safely at Ryan's place. He knew Sabrina wouldn't stop until she destroyed both around midnight. His phone vibrated. It was an unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. A familiar voice whispered, "You can't hide forever, Aiden." His blood ran cold. It was Sabrina. "How did you get this number?" he demanded. She laughed softly. "You really think you're safe with your little friend? Ryan, isn't it? He talks too much. What do you want?" "I want what belongs to me," she said. "And if you don't give it back, I'll make sure you lose everything else. Your house, your company, your life." "You already took enough," Aiden said. "This time you won't win." "Maybe," she said coldly. "But by the time you reach the court tomorrow, it will all be too late." The line went dead. Aiden stared at the phone, fear crawling up his spine. He grabbed his jacket and rushed to Ryan's apartment. When he arrived, the door was open. The place was dark and quiet. "Ryan." He called softly. No answer. He stepped inside carefully, heart pounding. Papers were scattered across the floor, the lamp knocked over. He walked further in, and then he saw it. The back door was open, leading to the alley. There were muddy footprints on the floor. "Ryan." He called again, louder this time. Then he saw it. A small drop of blood near the desk. His chest tightened. He ran outside into the alley, shouting his friend's name. The street lights flickered above him, throwing long shadows on the walls. There was no sign of Ryan. Only his phone lay on the ground. Screen cracked. Aiden picked it up and his eyes widened. On the screen was a message that had just been typed but never sent. It read, "Aiden, I found something about your father." Sabrina wasn't the only one before he could read more. The phone shut off. Aiden stood there in the cold night, the silence heavy around him. Sabrina's voice echoed in his head. "By the time you reach the court, it will all be too late." Something deeper was hiding behind all this, something his father had never told him, and now Ryan was missing. He looked up at the sky, his jaw tight with determination. "I'll find you, Ryan," he whispered, "and I'll find the truth no matter what it costs." Behind him, in the darkness, a car engine started quietly. Someone was watching. The night had never felt this cold. The city lights looked distant and blurred through the thin fog that hung in the air. Aiden stood in the alley staring at Ryan's phone, his heart thudding painfully inside his chest. The message was unfinished, but it was enough to make his mind spin. Sabrina wasn't the only one the words kept echoing in his head. What did that mean? Was someone else involved in his father's death? Who could it be? He looked around again, searching for any sign of Ryan. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and rain. Somewhere far away, a siren wailed. He walked deeper into the alley, shining his phone's flashlight on the wet ground. There were more footprints, but they disappeared near the back fence. Aiden climbed over it, landing in a narrow street behind a row of old warehouses. Everything was quiet. "Too quiet, Ryan." He shouted again, but his voice only bounced off the cold walls. He stood there for a long time, breathing hard, until he realized he couldn't stay. Whoever took Ryan might still be close. He slipped the phone into his pocket and ran toward the main road. He needed to find help, or at least someone he could trust. But trust had become a dangerous word, as he walked through the dark streets. His mind kept replaying everything: the forged will, the toxicology report, Sabrina's call. Nothing made sense anymore. When he finally reached the main road, dawn was beginning to break. The light painted the buildings in soft gold. But Aiden felt no warmth. He stopped at a small diner that was just opening and went inside. The smell of coffee filled the air, and for a moment, it felt almost normal. He sat at a corner booth, his hands trembling slightly as he pulled out Ryan's phone again. The screen was cracked, but he managed to power it on. The battery was low, but he could still access the messages. He scrolled through their recent chats, hoping to find some clue. Then he saw one unread message from Ryan, sent a few hours before his disappearance. Aiden, I found a name, Arthur Kane. He worked with your father years ago. There's something off about him. Meet me tomorrow. I'll explain. Arthur Kane. The name sounded familiar. Aiden tried to remember. Yes, his father used to mention him once or twice. Kane had been his father's business partner many years ago, before suddenly leaving the company after a disagreement. His father never talked about him again. Could he be the other one Ryan mentioned? Aiden quickly searched for the name online. There it was, Arthur Kane, owner of a private consulting firm now, still living in the city. He took a deep breath. If he's connected to this, he whispered, I'll find out. But first he needed to be careful. Sabrina was still out there. And if Kane was her ally, he might know Aiden was coming. A few hours later, Aiden reached the address Ryan had saved in his phone, a tall glass building in the business district. He stepped inside, trying to look calm. The receptionist, a woman in her 30s, smiled politely. I'm here to see Mr. Kane, Aiden said. Do you have an appointment? No, but it's important, he replied. She hesitated, then made a quick call. Mr. Kane, there's a man here, Aiden Collins. Says it's urgent. A pause. Then she nodded. You can go in, sir. Top floor, office 402. Aiden thanked her and stepped into the elevator. As it rose, his pulse quickened. When the doors opened, he saw a spacious office with large windows and a view of the city. Behind a sleek wooden desk sat Arthur Kane, a tall man with silver hair and sharp eyes. Ah, Kane said, standing up. Richard's son. I was wondering when you'd come. Aiden froze. You know who I am? Kane smiled faintly. Of course. Your father and I were partners once. I was very sad to hear about his passing. Were you? Aiden asked quietly. Because it seems like you might know more about it than you're admitting. Kane chuckled softly, straight to the point. Just like your father. He walked around the desk and poured himself a drink. Tell me, what do you think you know? I know my stepmother forged his will, Aiden said. I know she poisoned him. And I think someone helped her. Maybe you. Kane stopped mid-step. His eyes darkened. Those are dangerous words, Aiden. Then tell me the truth, Aiden demanded. Ryan was investigating you. Now he's missing. What happened to him? Kane didn't answer right away. He walked to the window, looking out at the city. Your father was a clever man, he said finally. Too clever for his own good. He trusted the wrong people. You mean Sabrina? Kane turned to face him. Sabrina was just the beginning. There were deals your father made, secret ones. He wanted to protect the company, but not everyone agreed with his choices. Let's just say, he had enemies. Are you one of them? Aiden asked sharply. Kane smiled thinly. I'm a businessman, Aiden. I do what's necessary. Aiden took a step closer. Did you help her kill him? Kane didn't reply, but a silence was enough. Aiden clenched his fists. You'll pay for this. Kane's expression remained calm. You're brave. I'll give you that. But bravery without power is suicide. Sabrina made the same mistake. She thought she could control everything. Now she's running from the law. Do you really think you can win where she failed? I don't need power, Aiden said coldly. I have the truth. Kane laughed softly. Truth doesn't win battles, Aiden. Money does. Influence does. And I have both. Before Aiden could reply, the door opened. Two men in dark suits stepped inside. Show Mr. Collins out, Kane said calmly. The men moved closer, but Aiden didn't resist. He knew it was pointless to fight here. He walked out, his mind racing. Once outside, he quickly dialed Mr. Henderson. I found another name, he said. Arthur Kane, I think he's involved. We need to meet tonight. The lawyer agreed. They decided to meet at a quiet cafe after dark, but as Aiden waited for the bus, his phone buzzed with a new message. It was from an unknown number again. You shouldn't have gone to him, Aiden. Now you've made things worse. It was Sabrina. He looked around quickly, but there was no one nearby. His palms began to sweat. She was watching him again, always one step ahead. He went straight to the cafe later that evening. The place was nearly empty. The lights dim. Soft music playing in the background. Mr. Henderson arrived a few minutes later, carrying a briefcase. I've reviewed the documents you gave me, the lawyer said quietly. The toxicology report and the will are strong evidence. If we file them in court, we can expose her and anyone working with her. Aiden nodded. Then let's do it tomorrow morning. The lawyer smiled faintly. It's time people learned the truth. But as they spoke, neither noticed the dark car parked outside. A shadowy figure sat behind the wheel, watching them closely. After an hour, they left the cafe. Mr. Henderson offered to drive Aiden home. The night was calm, the roads empty. For a moment, Aiden felt a small sense of relief. Thank you, he said quietly, for believing me. The lawyer smiled. Your father would be proud of you, Aiden. Then, suddenly, a blinding light appeared ahead. A truck speeding toward them. Look out! Henderson shouted, turning the wheel hard. The sound of screeching tires filled the air. The car spun wildly, crashing into a streetlight with a loud bang. Glass shattered everywhere. Everything went black dot. When Aiden opened his eyes, he was lying on the ground, his head pounding. The car was smoking, the front completely crushed. He crawled toward the driver's side, coughing. Henderson, he called, but the lawyer wasn't moving. Blood ran down his forehead. Aiden's heart broke. He grabbed the briefcase from the back seat, the one that held the documents, and stumbled away from the wreck. He could hear footsteps approaching, not police, but someone else, through the smoke. He saw her, Sabrina. She was standing on the other side of the road. Dressed in black, her eyes cold and full of triumph. I told you, Aiden, she said softly. You should have left it alone. Aiden's breath caught in his throat. She took a step closer, the headlights of a nearby car reflecting off her face. But before she could say more, the sound of sirens echoed again in the distance. Her expression changed, anger and fear flashing together. She turned and ran into the darkness. Disappearing between the buildings, Aiden stood there trembling, holding the briefcase tightly. The sirens grew louder. He knew the police would arrive any second. But he also knew one thing for sure. This wasn't an accident. Someone had planned this crash. And now? Mr. Henderson was gone too. He looked down at the briefcase, his jaw tightening. You wanted to stop me, Sabrina, he whispered. But you only gave me more reason to finish this. Behind him, the smoke rose into the cold night air, somewhere far away. A phone rang, and Arthur Kane's voice answered. It's done, he said quietly. The smell of smoke still clung to Aiden's clothes as the ambulance lights flashed across his pale face. He sat on the curb, clutching the briefcase tightly against his chest. The paramedics rushed around him, voices shouting, lights blinding. But all he could think about was the image of Sabrina standing there watching him with that cruel, satisfied smile. Mr. Henderson was gone. His only ally. His only real friend. He kept hearing the same words in his head. It's done. Arthur Kane's voice, that single sentence echoed through his mind like a hammer striking glass. It confirmed what Aiden already feared. Sabrina wasn't working alone. Kane had orchestrated everything. When the police questioned him, Aiden told them it was an accident. He had no proof yet, and he knew that saying too much too early could put him in even greater danger. He just said a truck came out of nowhere. They nodded, took notes, and left him with a blanket and a few empty words of sympathy. By the time he got home, dawn had already broken. The golden light poured through the windows, but the house felt cold and empty. Every shadow looked darker now. Every sound made him turn his head. He sat on the couch, the briefcase on the table. For a long time, he just stared at it, afraid of what he might find inside. Finally, he took a deep breath and opened it. Inside were papers, legal files, property records, and a few old letters. Some of the pages were marked with small sticky notes written in Mr. Henderson's handwriting. On one of them, he saw the name again, Arthur Kane. There was also a folder labeled Project Horizon. Aidan frowned. He had never heard of it before. He pulled out the file and started reading. The more he read, the more his chest tightened. It was a secret deal between his father and Kane, a business expansion plan involving large sums of money and land. But something went wrong. According to the documents, Kane had been accused of fraud. His father had cut ties with him completely. But that wasn't all. In one of the letters, dated a month before his father's death, Kane had written, "You can't erase me from your legacy, Richard. If you don't make things right, I'll make sure your son pays the price." Aidan's hands trembled as he read the words. His father must have known he was in danger. Maybe that's why he had changed his will. Maybe that's why Sabrina got involved, because Kane promised her power and money in exchange for helping him get revenge. He leaned back, rubbing his face with both hands. So this was never about inheritance, he whispered. It was about payback. The phone buzzed suddenly, making him jump. The screen showed another unknown number. He hesitated, then answered Aidan Collins. A man's voice said calmly, "You don't know me, but I knew your father. My name is Michael. I worked with him on Project Horizon." Aidan's heart pounded. "What do you want?" "I want to help you. But we can't talk on the phone. Meet me tonight, the old warehouse near the docks. 9 p.m., bring the documents." Before Aidan could reply, the call ended. He stared at the phone for a long time. Was this a trap? Or could this man really know something that could expose Kane and Sabrina? He didn't know who to trust anymore. But he had to go. He couldn't stop now, not when he was this close to the truth. That night, the docks were quiet. The sea wind was cold, carrying the scent of salt and oil. The old warehouse stood at the edge, its windows broken, its walls rusted. Aidan checked his watch. It was 8:59. He stepped inside, the floorboards creaking under his shoes. The light from his phone illuminated old crates and steel beams. "Michael." He called softly, no answer. He walked deeper into the building. The shadows stretched long and thin. Somewhere above, a pigeon fluttered its wings. Then a faint sound, footsteps. He turned quickly, gripping the briefcase tighter. "Who's there?" A tall man stepped out from behind the pillars. His hair was gray, his face rough, but not unfriendly. "You came," the man said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would. Are you Michael?" The man nodded. "Yes. I worked for your father for 15 years. He trusted me with some of his files just in case something happened to him." Aidan frowned. "Then you know what Kane did?" Michael looked around carefully before answering. Kane was never supposed to be part of the project. He forced his way in, used fake investors, and stole millions. Your father discovered it and tried to stop him. That's when Kane went to Sabrina. "So they killed him," Aidan said quietly. Michael sighed. "Yes, and now they're trying to erase everything that proves it." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small USB drive. "Everything you need is here. Emails, recordings, contracts. Enough to destroy them both." Don's eyes widened. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because your father saved my life once," Michael said softly. "This is my way of returning the favor." Before Aidan could thank him, headlights appeared outside. The sound of engines echoed through the walls. Michael's face changed. "They found us." "Who?" "Kane's men." Without another word, Michael grabbed Aidan's arm and pulled him toward the back door. Gunshots rang out behind them, bullets hitting the metal walls. Aidan's heart raced as they ran through the narrow hallway. "Go!" Michael shouted. "Take the drive and run." Aidan turned to help, but Michael pushed him away. "Go now." The next moment, there was a loud crash, a flash of light, then an explosion that threw Aidan to the ground. His ears rang, dust filled the air, and when he looked back, flames were rising from the warehouse. "Michael!" He screamed, but there was no answer. Tears blurred his vision as he stumbled to his feet, clutching the USB drive. He ran toward the road, gasping for air. Behind him, the warehouse burned like a monster, swallowing everything by the time he reached the main street. Police sirens were already approaching. He hid behind an abandoned car, his chest heaving. He had lost another ally, another good man, but he had something now: proof. Real proof. He looked at the drive in his hand, his fingers trembling. "You didn't die for nothing, Michael," he whispered. "I'll finish this." The next morning, Aiden went straight to the courthouse. He requested an emergency hearing with the help of a young legal assistant who had worked with Mr. Henderson. She hesitated at first, but agreed when she saw the fear and determination in his eyes. By noon, the request was approved. The hearing was set for the next day. Aiden spent the rest of the day preparing everything. He printed the files from the USB emails, financial records, and even a recorded call between Kane and Sabrina. In the audio, Kane's voice was calm and cold. "Once Richard signs the papers, he'll be out of the picture. If he refuses, we'll make it look natural." Sabrina's voice followed. "And the boy? Leave him. He'll have nothing left once it's over." Aiden slammed his fist on the table. Not anymore. He organized every piece of evidence into folders, labeling them carefully. When he finished, the sun had already set. The city outside glowed with soft yellow lights, but inside his apartment, everything felt heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. He sat down by the window, looking out into the darkness. The reflection in the glass showed a tired face, eyes red but full of fire. He whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, it ends." But just as he turned off the lamp, his phone vibrated again. Another message appeared, no number, no name. "You think you're ready for court, Aiden? You don't know what's coming." He froze. His stomach twisted. And then before he could react, he heard a knock at the door. 3 slow, heavy knocks. He stood up slowly, heart pounding. The air felt thick and tense. He moved closer to the door, every step echoing in his small apartment. He reached for the handle, but stopped when he saw a shadow under the door. Someone was standing there, waiting. The clock ticked slowly. The room was silent except for Aiden's uneven breathing. He stared at the door, his body frozen in place. The 3 knocks still echoed in his head, deep and heavy, like a warning. He didn't move for a long time. The knock came again, softer this time, almost like a whisper. Aiden. He froze. That voice. It was a woman's voice, calm, familiar, dangerous. Sabrina. He took a slow step back. His heart pounded in his chest. He looked around the apartment, the table covered with documents, the USB drive beside his laptop, the folders ready for court. He couldn't let her see any of it. "Aiden, please?" Her voice came again from behind the door. "I just want to talk." He didn't answer. He moved quietly to the window and peeked outside. A black car was parked across the street, its headlights off. There were 2 silhouettes inside. She wasn't alone. He backed away from the window and whispered to himself, "She's here to finish it." Then the knocking stopped. For a few seconds, there was silence. A silence so deep he could hear his heartbeat in his ears. Then came the sound of metal, the door handle turning slowly. Aiden grabbed a heavy lamp from the table, holding it tight. The door creaked open an inch, but before she could step in, he shouted, "Don't move." The door froze. "Aiden," she said softly, "you don't have to do this. I know you're angry, but we can fix everything together." "Fix?" Aiden snapped. "You killed my father. You lied to everyone." There was a pause. Then a cold laugh. "You think you know the truth? You don't. Your father wasn't the man you believe he was. What are you talking about?" "Open the door and I'll tell you," she said. He shook his head. "You're lying again," Sabrina sighed. "Fine. Have it your way. But remember, Aiden, tomorrow's court won't save you. Kane has already made sure of that." Then he heard footsteps fading away, the sound of her heels clicking down the hallway. A door slammed. Aiden waited a few minutes before slowly unlocking the door and peeking outside. The corridor was empty. Only silence remained. He stepped out carefully, scanning the shadows. Nothing. The black car was gone too. He locked the door again and sat down, breathing hard. His hands were shaking. She was warning him, but why? Maybe she knew something else. Something he didn't. He spent the rest of the night awake, staring at the evidence. Every file, every photo, every letter. They all pointed to her and Kane, but something still didn't fit. Why had his father trusted Kane in the first place? And what secret did Sabrina mean when she said his father wasn't who he thought? By morning, Aiden's eyes were red with exhaustion. But he was ready. He packed the documents carefully, placed the USB in his pocket, and left for the courthouse. The city was busy and loud as usual, but Aiden felt distant from it all. People passed him, talking, laughing, living normal lives, unaware that his life was about to change forever. When he reached the courthouse, reporters were already waiting outside. News of Sabrina's fraud had spread. Cameras flashed as he walked up the steps. Inside, the courtroom was cold and quiet. Kane sat confidently at the defense table, dressed in a sharp black suit. Sabrina sat beside him, wearing dark glasses, her face unreadable. Aiden's stomach twisted at the sight of her when she saw him. She smiled faintly, not cruelly this time, but almost sadly. The judge entered, and the session began. Aiden stood with his lawyer, a young woman named Emily, who had agreed to take the case after hearing his story. She was nervous but determined. "Mr. Collins," the judge said, "you've requested to reopen the inheritance case and present new evidence. You may begin." Aiden stepped forward, his voice shaking slightly. "Your Honor, my father's death wasn't natural. It was planned by my stepmother, Sabrina Collins, and her business partner, Arthur Kane." A murmur spread through the courtroom. Kane's expression didn't change, but Sabrina lowered her head. Aiden continued, showing the documents and recordings. Emily handed the files to the judge. "This," Aiden said, "is proof of their conspiracy, emails between them, money transfers, and a voice recording that clearly reveals their plan." The judge leaned forward, listening closely as the audio played. "Kane, once Richard signs the papers, he'll be out of the picture. Sabrina and the boy. Kane, leave him. He'll have nothing left once it's over." The courtroom filled with gasps. Aiden looked at Sabrina. Her hands were trembling now. Kane still looked calm, but his jaw tightened. "Mr. Kane," the judge said sternly, "how do you explain this?" Kane leaned forward, his voice smooth and controlled. "Your Honor, this so-called recording could easily be fabricated. Anyone with a computer can create fake audio these days." Emily spoke firmly. "We can verify the metadata, Your Honor. The files are original and unedited." The judge nodded. "We will send them for verification." Kane's calm started to crack. Aiden took a deep breath and held up one last file. "And this," he said, "is a letter written by my father, the real will, hidden from them." The clerk handed it to the judge, who examined the paper carefully. It was signed and dated with Richard Collins's handwriting and official stamp. The court went silent. Sabrina looked up, her eyes wide. "That can't be," she whispered. Aiden turned to her. "You forged everything, Sabrina. But you forgot one thing. My father didn't trust you. He gave a copy to his lawyer and another one to someone else. I found it." Sabrina shook her head slowly. "You don't understand." "Understand what?" Aiden demanded. "That you murdered him for money." Tears filled her eyes. "No, Aiden, I didn't kill him." The courtroom gasped again. Kane turned to her sharply. "What are you doing?" Sabrina's voice trembled. "He said he would protect me if I helped him change the will. But he lied. Arthur killed your father, Aiden, not me. 'Nuff?" Kane shouted, slamming his hand on the table. The judge banged the gavel. "Order." Aiden's heart was pounding. "You're lying again," he said to Sabrina. She looked at him, her face pale and wet with tears. "No, I'm not. Your father. He found out what Kane was doing. He tried to stop him. I was there. He fell, he hit his head. Cain made me say it was an accident. He threatened to kill me if I spoke. Cain stood up suddenly. She's delirious. She's trying to save herself. But the damage was done. The courtroom was in chaos. The judge ordered both of them to remain seated while security moved closer. Aiden's hands trembled. For the first time, he felt the truth breaking through the lies raw. Painful, but real. The judge called for a short recess. As the room emptied, Aiden sat down heavily on the bench. His mind was spinning. Sabrina wasn't innocent, but she wasn't the one who'd killed his father. It was Cain all along. He turned and saw Cain watching him, a cold smile forming on his lips. Then Cain leaned slightly forward and whispered something that made Aiden's blood freeze. "You think you've won? You don't know what your father was hiding from you." Aiden frowned. "What do you mean?" But Cain just smirked. "Ask yourself, Aiden. Why was he changing his will in the first place?" Before Aiden could respond, the officers came to escort Cain out of the room. He sat there, staring into nothing. The words sank deep into his mind. Why was his father changing his will? Maybe there was something else, another secret buried beneath everything. The courthouse clock struck noon, and sunlight spilled through the tall windows, painting the floor in gold. But Aiden felt no light inside him. He whispered under his breath, "What are you hiding, Dad?" At that moment, his phone buzzed again. Another unknown message appeared on the screen. "You found the truth about them. Now find the truth about him." Aiden's eyes widened. He looked around the courtroom, but no one seemed to notice. Someone was watching him. Someone who knew more than anyone else. And suddenly, the real mystery shifted from Sabrina and Cain to his own father. The courthouse felt strangely quiet after the storm. Reporters filled the hallways, cameras flashing, voices echoing. But Aiden didn't hear any of it. His mind was spinning, replaying Cain's words over and over. Ask yourself, Aiden, why was he changing his will in the first place? He walked out of the courtroom slowly, his eyes distant, the sunlight hitting his face but bringing no warmth. The truth he had fought so hard to uncover now felt incomplete, like a puzzle missing its final piece. Sabrina had confessed. Cain was being held, and the evidence was strong enough to reopen the murder case. But still, something felt wrong. Why had his father suddenly rewritten his will? Why hide it so secretly, giving copies to people Aiden didn't even know? And that last message, "You found the truth about them. Now find the truth about him." It haunted him. He didn't go home. Instead, he walked aimlessly through the streets until he reached his father's old office, the one that had been locked since the funeral. The building was quiet now, dust gathering on the glass doors. He still had the spare key his father once gave him. With shaky hands, he unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air smelled of old paper and wood polish. His father's desk stood in the center, untouched since the day he died. Family photos lined the shelves, his parents on their wedding day. Aiden as a child sitting on his father's shoulders, all smiling. Unaware of the darkness that would come, Aiden ran his fingers over the desk, tracing the small scratches and marks. He sat down slowly and looked through the drawers. Most were filled with files, letters, and old receipts. Nothing unusual. But then, in the bottom drawer, behind a stack of old business folders, he found a small wooden box. It had his father's initials carved into it. Our CTHE lock was old and rusty. But it wasn't hard to open with a screwdriver. Inside were several photographs, a few letters, and a small black notebook. Aiden picked up the photos first. His breath caught. They showed his father with another woman, not Sabrina, but someone else. The woman had kind eyes and dark hair. In one photo, she was holding a baby. Aiden frowned. The baby was him. He turned the photo over. On the back, written in neat handwriting, were the words, "For Aiden, when the truth is safe." His hands trembled. He looked at the other photos, the same woman, the same smile. He opened the notebook next. Inside, written in his father's handwriting, were several pages of notes, dates, and thoughts. The first page read, "If something happens to me, Aiden must know the truth about his mother." Aiden's heart skipped a beat. His mother had died when he was a baby, or so his father had told him. He flipped to the next page. Her name was Claire. She didn't die in an accident. She was taken from us, and I've been hiding her for years to protect Aiden. Aiden's vision blurred. He felt his chest tighten, his pulse racing. Taken. Hiding her. What did that mean? He turned the page again, his hands shaking. They were after her because of what she knew about Project Horizon. She was the one who discovered Kane's fraud first. When she tried to expose him, they went after her. I had to fake her death. She's alive, somewhere safe. Aiden dropped the notebook, his breathing heavy. Alive, his mother was alive. He couldn't believe it. All these years he had grown up thinking she was gone. His father had kept the secret buried deep. He sat there for several minutes, unable to move, the air thick with shock. Then he noticed one more page at the end. If Aiden ever finds this, he must go to Pinewood. The truth begins there. Pinewood. He had heard of that place before, a small town 2 hours away. His father used to go there every few months, always saying it was for business. Aiden wiped his tears and stood up. He packed the notebook, the photos, and the letters into his bag. He didn't care about the danger anymore. He had to know the truth. That night, he drove out of the city. The road stretched long and empty ahead of him. The sky was dark, the stars faint. The silence inside the car was broken only by the sound of the wind and the hum of the engine. His mind raced with thoughts. If his mother was alive, why didn't she ever come back? Why had his father hidden her? And what did Project Horizon have to do with her disappearance? When he finally reached Pinewood, it was past midnight. The small town was quiet, surrounded by tall pine trees and mist. The streetlights flickered softly, casting long shadows on the road. He parked the car near a closed diner and stepped out. The air was cold and damp. He looked around, unsure where to start. Then he noticed an old post office across the street. A faint memory surfaced. His father, once sending letters from Pinewood, but never saying to whom. He walked to the building. To his surprise, the lights inside were still on. A woman in her 60s sat behind the counter, sorting through papers. "Excuse me," Aiden said politely. "I'm looking for someone. Her name is Claire Collins." The woman looked up sharply. "Claire Collins," she repeated, her eyes narrowing. "Why are you asking?" Aiden hesitated. "She's my mother." The woman studied his face for a long time. Then she stood up and said softly, "You look just like her." Aiden's heart skipped. "You knew her?" The woman nodded. "Everyone in this town knew Claire, but she left years ago after the fire." "Fire?" "Yes. Her cabin burned down one night. The police said she died, but no one ever found a body." Aiden's stomach tightened. No body? That meant she might have escaped. "Do you know where she went?" he asked quickly. The woman hesitated, then pointed toward the forest. "There's an old house beyond the woods, near the lake. Some people say they've seen lights there at night. Others say it's haunted. But if she's alive, that's where she'd be." Aiden nodded gratefully. "Thank you." He drove toward the woods, following the narrow dirt path. The trees grew thick, their branches forming dark shapes in the moonlight. The deeper he went, the quieter it became. Only the sound of leaves crunching under his tires filled the silence. After several minutes, he saw a small wooden house near the edge of the lake. The windows were dark. The roof was old and covered in moss. He parked the car and stepped out slowly. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. He could hear the soft ripple of water nearby. He walked up to the door and knocked gently. No answer. He knocked again. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Still nothing. He tried the handle. It turned easily. The door creaked open. Inside, the house was dim and dusty. Old furniture covered in white sheets. A fireplace filled with ashes. But there were signs of recent life. A half-empty teacup on the table, a burning candle near the window, and a blanket on the couch. Someone had been here. Aiden's heart beat faster. "Mom?" he whispered. Then from upstairs came the sound of footsteps. Slow, careful. He froze, his breath shallow. The wooden stairs creaked as someone descended, and then he saw her. A woman appeared at the top of the stairs. Her hair was streaked with gray, her face pale but gentle. Her eyes widened when she saw him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, with a trembling voice, she said, "Aiden." He felt his throat tighten. "Mom." She covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. She rushed down the stairs and wrapped her arms around him. He held her tightly, unable to speak. All the years of pain, confusion, and loss melted in that moment. "I thought I'd lost you," he whispered. "I thought I'd never see you again," she cried. "Your father wanted to keep you safe. He didn't want them to find you." He pulled back slightly, looking into her eyes. "Them, you mean Kane?" She nodded slowly. Kane and others. There were more people involved, powerful ones. Your father tried to stop them, but he knew too much. "Who are they, Mom? What were they trying to hide?" She hesitated, her expression darkening. "It's not just about money, Aiden. It's something far bigger. Something that could destroy lives if the truth comes out." Before he could ask more, the sound of an engine roared outside. Headlights flashed through the window. Claire's eyes widened. "They found us." Aiden turned toward the door, his heart racing. Outside, dark figures stepped out of black cars, shadows moving toward the house. The roar of engines grew louder outside the cabin. Headlights sliced through the mist, casting long beams across the forest trees. Claire gripped Aiden's arm tightly, her eyes wide with fear. "They found us," she whispered again, her voice shaking. Aiden's mind raced. "Who are they? What do they want from us?" But Claire didn't answer. Instead, she pulled him toward the back of the house. "There's a door leading to the woods. We have to go now." The sound of car doors slamming echoed through the night. Men's voices carried through the air, low, sharp, and commanding. "Search the house. Don't let anyone leave." Aiden's heart pounded as he followed his mother through the narrow hallway. The floorboards creaked under their feet. He could hear boots crunching on gravel outside, closer and closer. Claire pushed open the back door, and the cold wind rushed in. They ran out into the dark woods, their footsteps muffled by the wet leaves. The smell of pine filled the air, and the faint light of the moon guided their way. Behind them, flashlights began to move through the trees. Over here, a voice shouted. "Keep running," Claire said breathlessly. Branches scratched at Aiden's face, and his lungs burned as they ran deeper into the forest. He could hear the men following, breaking branches, shouting orders. Then, up ahead, he saw the lake, silver and calm under the moonlight. Claire stopped near an old wooden boathouse at the water's edge. "In here," she said quickly, pushing open the door. Inside was dark and damp. Old boats, ropes, and fishing nets hung from the walls. They crouched behind an overturned canoe, their breaths shallow and quick. Aiden could hear footsteps outside. One man's flashlight beam cut through a crack in the door. The light hovered for a moment, then moved away. Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. The forest went silent again. Aiden finally whispered, "Mom, what is Project Horizon? What are they trying to hide?" Claire took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "It started years ago, before you were born. Your father and Kane worked for a research company. They were developing something dangerous, a project that could change how governments control information. Your father discovered Kane was selling data to private groups. When he tried to stop him, things got ugly, so they tried to silence him." Aiden asked. "Yes," Claire said softly, "and me too. I found out about it by accident. That's when Kane sent people after me. Your father faked my death to keep you safe. He told everyone I died in a car crash, but really I was hiding in Pinewood." Aiden felt a chill crawl up his spine. So Dad's death wasn't an accident either. Claire shook her head slowly. "No, they wanted the real will, the one that mentioned what he knew about Horizon. Kane thought he destroyed every copy. He didn't know your father left clues for you." Aiden stared at her in disbelief. His father's courage, his silence, all made sense now. He had died protecting not just an inheritance, but a secret that could expose powerful people. "Mom," Aiden said, his voice steady but low, We can't keep running. We need to end this. We need to take everything we know and show it to the court. Claire looked at him, her eyes filled with both fear and pride. Your father said the same thing. But you have to be careful. These people won't stop until every trace of the truth is gone. Outside, the sound of engines faded. The men were gone for now. They stayed hidden in the boathouse until dawn. The morning light spilled across the lake, turning the mist into golden ribbons. Claire leaned against the wall, her face pale, exhausted. Aiden finally stood up. We should go. We'll take this to the police. Maybe they can protect us. Claire nodded slowly. There's someone I trust, an old friend of your father's. His name is Richard Grant. He worked with him before all this started. He might still have evidence. Where can we find him? Aiden asked. In the city, Claire said. He runs a small security firm near the old financial district. But we have to be careful. They followed us here. They'll expect us to go back. They left the cabin at sunrise, driving along the back roads to avoid attention. The world seemed quiet again, but Aiden couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every car behind them felt suspicious. Every shadow on the road to dark. After hours of driving, they finally reached the city. The streets were busy, filled with noise and people. It almost felt safe. Almost, they parked near an old office building. The sign outside read Grant Security Consulting. Aiden helped his mother out of the car, and together they walked inside. The air smelled of coffee and metal. At the front desk, a middle-aged man with graying hair looked up. Can I help you? He asked politely. Claire's voice trembled slightly. Richard. The man froze. His eyes widened in shock. Claire, is that really you? She nodded, smiling faintly. It's been a long time. He rushed around the counter and hugged her tightly. I thought you were dead. Your husband told me you were gone. Had to disappear, she said softly. They were after me. After all of us. Aiden stepped forward. I'm her son, Aiden. Richard looked at him and nodded with respect. You've got your father's eyes. They sat in his office, and Claire told him everything, the hidden will. The threats, Kane's arrest, and the notebook Aiden found. Richard listened quietly, his face turning grim. I still have copies of some files, he said after a long pause. Your father asked me to keep them safe in case something happened. He said they'd be proof, the kind no one could ignore. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small hard drive wrapped in brown paper. This, said, contains the original data from Project Horizon, including Kane's deals, bank transfers, and coded communications. If you take this to court, you'll bring down everyone involved. Aiden took the drive carefully. It felt heavy in his hand, like holding the final piece of the puzzle. But before he could speak, Richard's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his face went pale. What is it? Claire asked. Richard swallowed hard. They know you're here. Aiden looked toward the window. 2 black cars had just pulled up outside. Get to the back, Richard shouted. Now, they ran toward the emergency exit. Gunshots shattered the front glass as the men stormed in. Richard grabbed his gun from the desk and fired back. Go, he yelled. I'll hold them off, Richard. Claire screamed, but he pushed her away. Save the files. Don't let them win. Aiden pulled his mother out the back door, the sound of bullets and shouting echoing behind them. They ran into the alley, breathless and terrified. Aiden clutched the hard drive tightly as they escaped down a narrow street. But then a car screeched around the corner, blocking their way. 4 men stepped out, all in black, their faces hidden behind masks. One of them spoke in a cold voice. Give us the drive, Aiden, or your mother dies tonight. Aiden froze, his heart pounding, his grip tightening on the hard drive. Claire stepped closer, her voice low. Don't give it to them, no matter what. The man raised his gun, and then a sudden noise. Tires screeching. Another car sped into the alley, slamming into one of the masked men. The driver's door flew open. It was Detective Lewis, the same officer who had doubted Aiden at the start. Get in, he shouted. Aiden and Claire dove into the car. Lewis hit the gas, speeding away as bullets flew past them. The city lights blurred outside as they raced through the streets. Claire clutched her chest, breathing heavily, while Aiden held the drive close. Detective Aiden said breathlessly, "How did you find us?" Lewis glanced in the mirror. "You made a lot of noise in Pinewood. We've been tracking Kane's men for weeks. You're lucky we got there in time." "But they're not just Kane's men," Claire said softly. "There's more behind this, people in power." Lewis nodded grimly. "I know, and now we finally have proof." But before anyone could speak again, a black SUV appeared behind them, headlights blinding, moving fast. "They're still following us," Aiden shouted. Lewis tightened his grip on the wheel. "Hold on." The SUV rammed into their car from behind. Metal screamed. The road ahead curved dangerously toward a bridge over the river. "Brace yourselves," Lewis yelled. The impact hit again, harder this time. The car spun out of control, crashing through the bridge railing. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. The headlights, the cold air, the screams, all blurred into one. Then the car plunged into the dark water below. The car hit the river with a thunderous crash. Cold water exploded through the windows and everything went dark. Aiden's lungs burned as icy water filled the car. He tried to scream, but all that came out were bubbles. The headlights flickered beneath the surface, turning the water around him into a blur of silver and black. He could barely see Claire beside him. She was trying to open her seatbelt, her eyes wide with terror. Detective Lewis struggled in the front seat, reaching for something. Maybe his gun, maybe the door handle. But the water was rising too fast. Aiden's mind screamed, "Move!" He pushed against his door, but it wouldn't budge. The pressure from outside was too strong. The car tilted slowly, sinking deeper into the dark. He looked at his mother again. Her lips moved soundlessly. Aiden. He unbuckled his seatbelt, took a deep breath, "Okay?" and kicked the window with all his strength. Once, twice. On the third hit, the glass cracked. He kicked again, and it shattered. Water rushed in completely now, freezing and suffocating. He reached for Claire's hand and pulled her through the broken window. The cold hit his body like knives, but he kept swimming, dragging her toward the faint glow of the surface above. When they finally broke through the surface, Aiden gasped, sucking in air like he'd been reborn. The night sky stretched above, black and endless. "Mom," he shouted, holding her tightly. "Mom, are you okay?" She coughed weakly, nodding, shivering from the cold. Lewis Aiden turned back. The car was almost gone, sinking slowly. For a moment, he thought he saw movement inside, Lewis still struggling. "Detective," Aiden yelled. But it was too late. The car vanished beneath the black water. They floated for several seconds, their breaths ragged. Then Aiden spotted a piece of debris drifting nearby, part of the car door. He pulled his mother toward it, helping her stay afloat. The current was strong, pulling them downstream. The river twisted between rocky banks, the water roaring like thunder. Aiden kicked hard, guiding them toward the shore. After what felt like forever, they reached the muddy edge. Aiden pulled Claire onto the ground. Both of them were soaked, trembling, their clothes heavy and cold. He looked around. They were far from the city. Trees and shadows surrounded them. The bridge was nowhere in sight. "Mom, we have to move," he said, his voice hoarse. "They'll come looking for us." Claire nodded weakly. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely stand. Aiden helped her up, his mind racing. The hard drive, the evidence, it was still in his pocket. He touched it to make sure it was there. Thank God it was. They followed a narrow path through the woods, guided by the faint light of the moon. Every sound, every crack of a branch or whisper of wind made Aiden's heart jump. Finally, after an hour of walking, they found a small abandoned gas station by the roadside. The sign was broken, the windows dusty, but the door was unlocked. They went inside. The air was cold and smelled of oil. Aiden found an old blanket behind the counter and wrapped it around his mother. "Rest for a bit," he said softly. "I'll figure out what to do." She looked up at him with tired eyes. "You've grown so strong, Aiden. Your father would be proud." He smiled faintly, but his heart felt heavy. "We're not done yet." Not until everyone knows the truth. As she rested, Aiden searched the gas station. He found an old first aid kit, some matches, and a small map. The nearest town was about 10 miles away. Then, in the silence, he heard it. The faint hum of engines. He looked through a crack in the window. Headlights appeared far down the road, moving slowly, searching. "They're coming," he whispered. Claire stood up immediately, her face pale. "We have to hide." They slipped out through the back door and ran behind the building. A forest stretched beyond the fence, thick and dark. They climbed over and ran into the trees again, staying low. The cars stopped outside the gas station. Men got out, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. "Check inside." One of them ordered. Aiden and Claire crouched behind a fallen tree, holding their breath as the light swept across the area. The men kicked open the door, looked around, and cursed. They were here, one said. "Find them." Aiden's pulse thundered in his ears. He grabbed his mother's hand and motioned deeper into the forest. They crept quietly, every step careful. The ground wet beneath their feet. The men fanned out, calling to each other, their voices growing closer. Then, suddenly, Claire tripped over a root. She fell with a soft cry. A flashlight beam swung toward them. There, a man shouted. Gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through the trees. Aiden pulled his mother behind a boulder. Bark splintered. Dirt flying into the air. They were trapped. Aiden looked around desperately and saw an old shed at the edge of the woods. "This way?" he whispered. They ran for it, bullets still flying. Aiden kicked the door open and pushed his mother inside. He slammed it shut and dropped the heavy metal bar across it. They stood in the dark, breathing hard. The sound of footsteps approached. Claire gripped his arm. "Aiden, they won't stop. You have to run. Take the drive and go." "No," Aiden said firmly. "I'm not leaving you." "You don't understand," she said, tears in her eyes. "They want me more than you. If they catch me, you still have a chance." He shook his head. "We'll both make it out." Outside, the men's voices grew louder. One of them kicked the door. The wood shook. "Open up." Aiden scanned the shed quickly. There was a window near the roof, small, but just big enough for him to squeeze through. "Mom, climb up," he whispered. She hesitated, then nodded. Aiden helped her onto a stack of crates. She climbed and pushed open the window. Just as she started to climb out, the door burst open. The men stormed in, shouting. Aiden turned. One grabbed him by the collar. Another pointed a gun at Claire. "Stop." The man barked. Claire froze halfway through the window. Aiden struggled, trying to break free, but the man's grip was too strong. "Give us the drive." One shouted. Aiden hesitated, his mind spinning. He couldn't give it to them. His father's sacrifice, Richard's death, all of it would be for nothing then. Before anyone could react, Claire screamed, "Run, Aiden." She kicked the man behind her, sending him stumbling. At the same moment, Aiden bit the arm of the one holding him and tore free. He dove through the window and hit the ground outside hard. "Stop him." Someone yelled. Aiden ran. Bullets flew past him, cutting through the air. He didn't look back. His mother's voice echoed behind him. "Go." He kept running deeper into the woods, his lungs on fire, tears blurring his vision. When he finally stopped, he was alone. Completely alone. He collapsed beside a tree, gasping for breath. The forest was silent again. No voices. No footsteps. But then, in the distance, a sound, a single gunshot. Aiden froze. His whole body went cold. "Mom," he whispered. He wanted to go back, but his instincts told him it was suicide. He had the drive. He had to finish what they started. Wiping his tears, he stood up. His legs trembled, but his eyes burned with determination. He pulled out his phone, miraculously still working, and opened a message from an unknown number. It was from Detective Lewis. The message had been sent hours before the crash. "If something happens, take the drive to federal headquarters. There's someone there you can trust, Agent Wallace. Code word, Horizon." Aiden stared at the screen. It was his only chance. He set off toward the nearest highway, walking until dawn. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, turning the sky red and gold. He was exhausted, dirty and broken, but alive. Finally, he reached a small town. He borrowed a stranger's phone and called for help. A police car picked him up and drove him to the city at the federal building. He showed them the drive and the message. They took him to a secure room, where a woman in a dark suit introduced herself as Agent Wallace. "I've been expecting you," she said calmly. "We've been tracking Project Horizon for months. Your father's information will finally bring them down." Aiden handed over the drive. "Please," he said, his voice cracking, "you have to help my mother." They took her. Wallace's expression softened. "We'll do everything we can. You've done something extraordinary, Aiden. You've exposed one of the biggest corruption networks in the country." He nodded, his eyes filling with tears. "I just want this to end." She placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It will." But just as she said that, one of the agents entered the room looking alarmed. "Ma'am," he said quickly, "the files, they're encrypted. And the system is showing a remote connection. Someone else is accessing the data right now." Aiden turned sharply. "What? Who?" The agent hesitated. "It's coming from inside the building." A chill ran down Aiden's spine. Agent Wallace frowned. "Seal all exits." The alarms began to ring. Red lights flashed in the hallway. People shouted, running in every direction, and then, through the chaos, Aiden saw him, Kane. He was alive, standing at the end of the corridor, smiling coldly. "You didn't think it would be that easy, did you?" Kane said. Aiden's breath caught. "You? You're supposed to be in custody." Kane laughed softly. "Money buys freedom, Aiden. Always remember that." He raised a gun. The air inside the federal building turned cold. The alarms still screamed, and red warning lights flashed across the walls. Aiden's heart pounded in his chest as he stared at Kane standing at the end of the hallway, his face calm, his eyes filled with cruelty. The man who had destroyed everything, his father's legacy, his mother's peace, his family's name was right there. Alive and unshaken, Kane raised his gun slowly, the metal glinting under the red lights. "You should have stayed out of this, Aiden," he said, his voice sharp and cold. "You could have lived a normal life. But now you've seen too much." Before Kane could fire, Agent Wallace shouted, "Down." She pulled Aiden to the floor as bullets tore through the air. The glass walls shattered and people screamed. Federal agents returned fire, the sound echoing like thunder. Smoke filled the hallways, alarms blaring louder than ever. Aiden's ears rang as he crawled behind a desk, his heart racing faster than it ever had in his life. Kane's inside the system. One of the agents yelled from behind a terminal. "He's trying to erase the evidence from the servers." Aiden looked up. On the screens around the room, lines of code flashed rapidly, files disappearing one by one. All the proof his father had collected, the project records, the bribes, the murder files, it was all being wiped away in front of him. He turned to Agent Wallace. "If he deletes it, everything's lost." She nodded sharply. "We need to cut the power to the main server room. But it's in the East Wing past his men." "I'll go," Aiden said without thinking. Wallace looked at him in disbelief. "No, it's too dangerous." But Aiden's voice was steady. "He took my father. He took my mother. I'm not letting him win again." For a second, Wallace saw the same fire she once saw in his father's eyes. She handed him a key card. "This opens the server room. Take the back stairwell. It's faster. Go, I'll cover you." Aiden nodded and sprinted down the hallway. The building shook with gunfire. Smoke stung his eyes, but he didn't stop. He turned corners, jumped over broken glass, and slid down the stairwell railings. His lungs burned, but his mind was focused on one thing, the server room. When he reached it, he found the door locked with an electronic code. He swiped the key card and heard the click. Inside, the room was filled with blinking lights, fans humming loudly, and rows of servers that glowed like metal towers. The heat was intense. He ran to the main console. On the screen, a timer was counting down 3 minutes until full data wipe. Come on, he whispered, typing quickly. He wasn't an expert, but his father had taught him enough to understand the basics. He accessed the control panel, trying to stop the process, but Kane's system was too strong. Every time he blocked one command, another appeared. Then, through the intercom, Kane's voice echoed. You think you can stop me, Aiden? I built this system. Your father only scratched the surface. He was a good man, but too naive. Just like you. Aiden's fists clenched. You killed him. He shouted. You killed Richard. And now you're trying to erase everything. Kane laughed. Richard was weak. He thought truth mattered. But truth doesn't feed you, doesn't protect you. Power does. Aiden felt anger boil inside him. His father's face flashed in his mind, gentle, kind, always believing in honesty. And then his mother's terrified face the night of the crash. He couldn't let their suffering be for nothing. He typed furiously, searching the directories. Then he found a hidden access port labeled Root Horizon, his father's project. The original code, he entered the override password his father once mentioned in an old letter. Light always wins. The screen flickered and the countdown stopped. Kane's voice snapped. What did you do? Aiden smiled bitterly. You forgot, Kane. My father built the first system. You only copied it. He left a back door. Kane cursed. The lights in the server room flickered violently. Then Aiden heard footsteps behind him. He turned. Kane was there, holding a gun, his suit torn, his eyes wild. You think you're a hero? Kane hissed. You're just a boy playing in a world of men. Aiden slowly backed toward the console. Maybe, but even a boy can end your empire. Kane raised the gun, but before he could shoot, a voice shouted from behind him. Drop it. Agent Wallace stood at the doorway with two agents, guns aimed. Kane turned and fired wildly. Wallace ducked, returning fire. The bullets hit the wall beside Aiden, sparks flying. He dropped to the floor as chaos erupted again. Kane ran behind a server, shooting blindly. Wallace moved closer, her team spreading out. Aiden crawled toward the power switch. He knew what he had to do. If he pulled it, the system would shut down, but it would also trigger a blast to prevent data theft. Wallace shouted, Ata, Aiden, don't. He looked back at her and shook his head. Tell my mom I kept my promise. Then he pulled the switch. The entire building went dark. For a moment, everything was silent, and then a loud explosion ripped through the east wing. The shockwave threw Aiden backward. He hit the floor hard, the sound of crashing servers and shattering glass filling his ears. When the smoke cleared, Aiden was lying on the floor, barely conscious. He could hear voices, muffled, distant. Wallace's team dragged him out, coughing, covered in ash. Get him out. Now, she shouted. Dot, outside! Fire trucks and ambulances surrounded the building. Flames rose from the windows. Aiden sat on the pavement, dazed, his head bleeding slightly. He looked up and saw Kane being carried out on a stretcher, alive but handcuffed. His face was burned, his eyes filled with rage. Wallace knelt beside Aiden. You did it. The backup servers, they restored everything. We have all the proof. It's over. Aiden's lips trembled. My mom, is she okay? Wallace smiled softly. We found her. She's safe. They had her locked up in one of Kane's warehouses. She's on her way here. Aiden closed his eyes, tears falling down his face. For the first time in years, the weight on his heart began to lift. Hours later. In the hospital, he woke to the sound of soft breathing beside him. Claire was there, sitting by his bed, holding his hand. Her eyes were tired but full of warmth. My brave boy, she whispered. You saved us. He smiled weakly. We saved each other. Agent Wallace entered the room holding a file. Kane and his men are in custody. Project Horizon is exposed. Your father's name will be cleared. Claire covered her mouth as tears rolled down. He didn't die for nothing. Caden nodded. No, he didn't. Wallace placed the file on the table. You should know. Your father left one more thing. A recorded message. It was hidden in the system. She handed Aiden a small flash drive. He plugged it into the laptop beside him. The screen lit up, showing his father's face, older, kind, with that same gentle smile. "If you're watching this," his father's voice said softly, "then the truth has finally come to light. I'm proud of you, Aiden. Always remember, no matter how dark the world becomes, there's always a light waiting to be found. Be that light." The video ended. The room was silent except for Claire's quiet sobs. Aiden held her hand tighter. Days later, the news spread everywhere. The headlines read, "Corruption Network Exposed Whistleblowers, Son Brings Down Billion-Dollar Empire." Aiden stood outside the courthouse, reporters shouting his name, cameras flashing. But he didn't care about fame or revenge. He looked at the sky, where the morning sun shone bright, and whispered, "We did it, Dad." His mother stood beside him, smiling proudly. "What will you do now?" she asked. He looked toward the courthouse doors. "I'll start again. Maybe use the money Dad left me for something good. Maybe a foundation for truth and justice." She smiled. "That sounds like him." As they walked away, the crowd faded behind them. The chapter of pain and lies was finally over. The world knew the truth, and Aiden had found peace, not through revenge, but through courage. He learned that truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And those who listen change everything. If you've come this far, thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to tell, but it's real, full of pain, loss, and hope. Always remember, no matter who betrays you or what you lose, the truth always finds its way out. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.